WADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar. Good afternoon and many thanks for tuning in to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. This is Newslink and here are the top stories. Burkina Faso's Kama village massacre survivors demand justice as death toll surges to 147. Ghana's Speaker of Parliament defends Africa's sovereignty and stands firm against Western pressure on LGBTQ+ rights. Opposition political parties in Senegal set conditions for dialogue with the government. And Togo received 3 billion francs CFA grant for affordable housing project targeting low and middle income household. Details of these stories and more here. Please don't go away.
Here is James Adjapong with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us. Let's begin the bulletin in Burkina Faso, where survivors of a recent massacre in Kama village are disputing the official death toll released by the government. According to the spokesperson, Daouda Belem, the April 20th attack resulted in the death of 147 people, significantly higher than the government's reported 60 deaths. The survivors are urging the government to bring the perpetrators to justice. Last week, the state prosecutor launched an investigation into the incident following reports that individuals wearing the uniforms of the Burkinabe Armed Forces had killed civilians. Oge Obiarika has more details.
The attack, which has been termed by security experts as one of the worst on civilians as the country battles armed militants linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, has prompted condemnations and calls for an investigation by the United Nations Human Rights Office. The government condemned the attack on Kama in an April 27 statement but gave no details on casualties. A statement issued by the residents and survivors Saturday said the village was surrounded early in the morning of April 20 by heavily armed men in Burkinabe military uniforms on motorcycles, pickup trucks and armored vehicles. A representative of the residents and survivors speaking at a news conference in Wahikuya, the province capital around 15 kilometers from Kama village, said the government's statement bordered on indifference and contempt for the residents of Kama. The statement sows confusion about the responsibility of security and defense forces for the massacre, he said. Burkina Faso is one of the several West African countries struggling with a violent Islamist insurgency that has spread from neighboring Mali over the past decade, killing thousands and displacing more than 2 million. However, the country's military government has launched a large-scale offensive that it says is aimed at reclaiming swaths of territory controlled by armed insurgents.
Oge Obiarika filed that report. In Niger, civil society organization, the Union Tilaberi Committee for Peace and Social Cohesion, has expressed concerns about the security situation in the country. They are calling for the departure of foreign forces from Niger due to the current management of the security crisis in the Tilaberi region, which has experienced a surge in terrorist attacks since 2017. The citizen movement released a press statement on Sunday in Niamey denouncing the situation. WADR's Niamey correspondent Mutala Zuberu with more details in this report filed by Marty C. in our studios.
The Union Tilaberi for Peace and Social Cohesion Committee issued a statement in which it raised concerns about the management of the security crisis in the Tilaberi region of Niger. Aruna Amudumega, the coordinator of the Union Tilaberi Committee for Peace and Social Cohesion, expressed these concerns.
We still remember the events that took place at a so-called clandestine site in Kamu and the recent massive displacement of the population of Tege. What is more serious and what worries us is that the terrorists are giving ultimatums to the populations to leave their villages, or else they would take advantage of them and in the cruelest way and say that the authorities are well informed but do not undertake any action towards rescuing the local populations in distress, which is considered as a non-assistance of persons in danger, which is punishable by law and recognized universally.
Ce qui est puni conformément à la loi et reconnu universellement.
According to the committee, several traditional and religious leaders have been assassinated, and the imposition of zakat on livestock, a form of Islamic taxation, has been enforced. Mega said that there has been a significant displacement of people due to terrorist attacks.
The area of Likpato, Goma has become a no man's land, abandoned by the state, where the terrorists ransom them at will in all tranquility without being worried about anymore. In 1 month, they have established the space, and the authorities are aware of this.
The civil society organization emphasized its desire for foreign forces, specifically French forces involved in the fight against terrorism, to leave Niger.
Mutala Zubairu with that report, voiced by Marty C. in our studios.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
If you are just tuning in, this is Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, where we bring you all the news around the sub-region, and we are streaming around the world on WADR.org. Meanwhile, Ghana's Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, has made a strong statement regarding Africa's stance on international pressure. He emphasized that the continent will not be intimidated by veiled threats of investment withdrawal and international aid cuts, noting that such measures have not deterred Africa's efforts to protect its culture, values, and societal norms, as well as secure the future of its youth. Bagbin made these remarks during a meeting with members of the British House of Lords and the House of Commons in London. This statement comes at a time when Ghana is facing Western superpower pressure to abandon a proposed bill that seeks to criminalize members of the LGBTQ+ community in the country. WADR Satewin and Bella Lawson in Accra brings us up to speed with the development.
During a meeting with British lawmakers, the Speaker of Ghana's Parliament, Alban Bagbin, discussed the LGBTQI+ phenomenon and the promotion of human, sexual rights and family values bill currently before Parliament. According to a statement from the Public Affairs Directorate of Parliament, Bagbin emphasized that Parliament's role is to receive bills from civil society or interest groups or from the executive and take them through the process and procedures outlined in its standing orders and in consonance with the provisions of Ghana's constitution. He also stated that curtailing human rights was not the target of the bill, but rather the protection of rights and values. Bagbin explained that once a group of people agree on what constitutes human rights, values, and principles, they move on, and what is required is alignment and understanding of their context. He insisted that Ghana's Parliament had the mandate and capability to legislate on the subject and would not tolerate any interference from the executive. He further stated that Ghana's constitution was heavy on the promotion and protection of various fundamental human rights and freedoms. The Speaker revealed that the promotion of human sexual rights and family values bill was developed after extensive consultations held by the legislators' select committees in various countries such as the UK, the US, EU, and Canada.
Atiawene Bella Lawson with that report. In Senegal, President Macky Sall's call for dialogue with the opposition political parties made almost a month ago is yet to yield any result. The opposition is divided on the call for dialogue, with some political parties in support of the move, but with conditions, while others view it as a ploy to divide the opposition. Tofik Abdul Nasir in Dakar completes the story.
The political climate in Senegal remains tense as the February 2024 presidential election approaches. President Macky Sall has expressed a desire for political dialogue, but the divided actors have yet to come to the table. While some support the idea, others see it as a ploy to divide opposition forces. The Senegalese Democratic Party, led by former President Abdoulaye Wade, is in favor of the dialogue, but with certain conditions. They are calling for an amnesty for Karim Wade, son of the former president and a presidential candidate, and the revision of the electoral roll under the supervision of the European Union, Africa, and the United States. The Taxeu movement, led by former Dakar Mayor Khalifa Sall, also supports the dialogue, but is demanding a guarantee of amnesty for Sall, who is currently ineligible due to a conviction. The opposition party, PASTEF, led by Ousmane Sonko, is denouncing numerous arrests within their political group, including Secretary General Bassirou Diomaye Faye. Other political actors, such as former Prime Minister Aminata Toure, are skeptical of the call for dialogue and view it as a tactic to divide opposition forces. Civil society groups are also calling for President Sall to publicly announce that he would not be running for a third term in the upcoming election before they participate in any political dialogue.
Tofik Abdul Nasir with that report. We cross over to the Gambia, where candidates of the ruling National People's Party, NPP, have expressed optimism of victory after filing their nomination papers for the upcoming mayoral and chairmanship elections. The NPP, led by President Barrow, has submitted nominations in all 7 regions of the country to unseat the current mayors of the capital Banjul and Kanifing municipality, who both belong to the leading opposition United Democratic Party, UDP. WADR's Banjul correspondent Sankole Janko brings us more on the NPP's nomination.
Melodious traditional Jola music, accompanied by sounds of the vuvuzelas, blown by the supporters of the mayoral candidate Bakari Baji, who is running for mayor of Kanifing municipality as the National People's Party candidate. He faces the challenging task of unseating incumbent Talib Ahmed Bensouda, who won in 2018 and whose UDP party won the ward council elections in the same region.
For a mayor who has in office for the first time increased taxes by 100% and increase all the license and everything by 100%, increase the duties that the women pay by 100%, and yet is not able to provide them a single market or a single road or a school or extend water anywhere or develop anything from council resources. That mayor certainly does not deserve a second vote.
In the capital Banjul, football administrator Ibufai is running against current mayor Rahim Malik Law of the opposition UDP with a focus on flood prevention and proper waste management.
Our first priority to address is to address how do we mitigate flooding that affected Tobacco Road. Not only Tobacco Road, but London Corner, Losowa, Ima Omar, so what we want to do is to make sure we have a team that will look at it so that this time round it will not affect fire. We have the waste management system that we need to address.
TV personality Sheriff Cisse is the NPP's candidate for the chairmanship in the West Coast region, promising job creation and expressing optimism.
And with the firm belief and commitment, I want to serve the needs and the aspirations of the people of West Coast. My priority as far as West Coast is concerned is to make sure we have a clean West Coast, a West Coast that we grow the economy, and a West Coast that we create jobs.
However, the party suffered heavy losses in the recent ward council elections in this region. The NPP is expected to perform well in the remaining 4 regions of provincial Gambia, where they won a landslide overall in the recent election. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sankole Janko reporting from Banjul.
You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Burkina Faso's Kama village massacre survivors demand justice as death toll surges to 147. Ghana's Speaker of Parliament defends African sovereignty and stands firm against Western pressure on LGBTQ+ rights. Opposition political parties in Senegal set conditions for dialogue with the government. And Togo received 3 billion francs CFA grant for affordable housing project targeting low and middle income households. Still ahead, we have our newspaper review, guest interview, and some sports update. Kindly stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
It's 14 minutes past 12 in our studios here, and this is West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM. Let's head to Togo as the government receives a grant of 3 billion francs CFA from the African Development Bank AFDB to continue its housing project with targets which target low and middle income households in the country. The project aims to complete 20,000 affordable housing units with a major focus on the capital city Lomé, which is home to 23% of the country's population and hosts most of its administrative, economic, social and cultural activities. Imoedet completes the story.
Due to the delay in the construction of affordable housing in Togo, The African Development Bank, AFDB, has decided to release over $5.13 million for feasibility studies to accelerate the work and provide access to decent housing for low and middle-income households. The entire country's territory is included, with Pome serving as the pilot site as it concentrates more than half of the demand for affordable housing. The total cost of the project is $6.07 million, and the West African Development Bank Board will contribute 600 million CFA francs. The donors aim to facilitate the structuring of the project at the legal and institutional level for a quick start to improve the living conditions of thousands of Togolese. The homes will have a direct and positive impact on people's lives, including access to education, healthcare, food, and economic opportunities. Access to decent housing is difficult for most citizens due to a number of unfavorable conditions. The AFDB notes that self-construction is still a common practice, but it is not enough to make housing accessible to low-income households. In 2019, only 1,800 housing units were completed, while the additional annual deficit is estimated at 15,000 units, bringing the deficit of decent housing to 500,000 units.
More data filed that report.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Up next, we have our press stories from Abuja with WADR's Usman Omar.
Hello and welcome to the press review segment for today with me, Usman Umar from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Today we have two papers for consideration. We shall be looking at This Day newspaper and Vanguard newspaper. Of course, the This Day newspaper we are starting with has at its banner headline a leading story. Nigeria Labour Congress, civil society organizations plead with judiciary to save Nigeria's democracy. With Rider says INEC, that is Independent National Electoral Commission, has driven a nail into the electoral coffin of the country. Nigeria Labour Congress threatens to name, shame corrupt judges. In one of the prayers of the Labour Party, the tribunal should squash the victory of Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the candidate of the All Progressives Party in the just concluded presidential election. Now, of course, you have just above the banner headline of This Day newspaper, Arise News Channel donates 1 billion naira to Western Delta University to set up media and technology school. Arise News, of course, is one of the leading broadcast television stations in Nigeria. And in the detail of this story, the new channel has donated 1 billion naira to Western Delta University to set up media and technology school. This is part of efforts to boost media and technology education in the country. Now we quickly move to Vanguard newspaper. Vanguard has as its lead story, May Day. It's been terrible, agonizing for workers. You know, today being 1st of May is the day set aside to celebrate Workers' Day. And as we speak, around the country, various states are celebrating workers in various forms. In Abuja here at the Eagle Square, workers have gathered in their various trade union uniforms to, of course, celebrate. But coming from the leadership of the Nigeria Labour Congress, that is NLC, they said it has been terrible, agonizing for workers. With a rider, as workers in oil, electricity, maritime, other sectors grieve over continuous misery, poverty, hopelessness. And another rider, they ask government to address poverty, insecurity, unemployment, inflation, high cost of living. And the last rider under that story, they also set agenda for the incoming government. Of course, even as at yesterday, we heard from the National Association of Resident Doctors threatening to embark on another industrial action that will lead to the shutdown of our healthcare centers. Therefore, of course, this also follows this particular story coming on May Day. And this is where we draw the curtains on today's edition of Press Review. It's back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Usman, for that newspaper review.
Politics,
analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
During a meeting with the British House of Lords and the House of Commons in London, Ghana's Speaker of Parliament, Adjapong, stated that the African continent will not be swayed by disguised threats of investment withdrawal and international aid cuts. He pointed out that such actions have not hindered Africa's efforts to safeguard its culture, values and societal norms, as well as secure the future of its youth. This statement comes at a time when Ghana is facing pressure from Western superpowers to abandon a proposed bill that seeks to criminalize LGBTQ+ individuals in the country. Our guest, Maswell Boama, will provide his perspective on whether African leaders can govern their countries without the assistance of superpowers and the possibility of investment that these superpowers have identified, making them more interested in forming partnership with the continent. Another pressing issue is how African leaders should handle Western contracts that subtly impose foreign cultures, norms, and ethics on the continent.
First of all, we need to understand the laws of the country. Now, what Mr. Alan Bagman, the Speaker of Ghana's Parliament, is basically doing is reaffirming, the sovereignty of Ghana and the position of the Ghanaian law. But what laws was he specifically referring to? He was looking at the supremacy of Ghanaian law in Article 1 of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. And he even went ahead to also emphasize on Article 104, which is the Criminal Act of Ghana, which states that unnatural sexual behavior or carnal behavior shall not be accepted in Ghana. Of course, it's debatable as to what it is, but we leave that to the Supreme Court's interpretation. But his statement also, one way or the other, emphasized on the fact that Ghana has signed international treaties. The basic one is Article 2 of the United Nations Charter, which states that state sovereignties should be respected. Okay, and under no circumstance should any state use force against any other state. But economic sanctions or threatening to withdraw aid to countries could also be classified as the use of force.
So can African leaders really manage their countries without aid? I mean, what are the future investments our leaders are not probably seeing that these superpowers are keenly interested in and are working towards building partnership with the continent?
That is the problem here, because let's take major, international organizations, for example. Maybe you can start from the World Bank. If you look at the World Bank, for example, the United States has the highest share over there. They have over 16% of shares over there. If you look at the first 10, they are all mostly Western countries. United States, Germany, France, UK, Italy, Canada. These are all Western economies, So it will be very hard. I have always been against Africa countries' tiny economies. Trying to be self-reliant. Because, how does countries like Ghana match the state of the United States? It's basically impossible to do that. Okay, so we still need the support of these countries if we really want to remain as tiny as we are. Else, we have to come together to manage our economies together as a federal state. That would make it much easier. So they can sanction you that, okay, you are not obeying international laws, you are not respecting the rights of people, so we are going to sanction you to prevent you from trading your cocoa, which is Ghana's largest agricultural export. I'm not saying they are going to do it, but what if they do it? It means that Ghana will find it very difficult to even export its own materials outside. Even in Russia, you should know that they only changed their laws in 2020, that they stated that marriage should be between a man and a woman. That is because they had established some kind of, sovereignty that they felt like without the West, they can still, be independent. Because Russia really depended on the West for its gas supplies and all that. But after building their system to some level, they felt they were okay and that they can have alternatives to Western economies. And then they started changing their laws gradually. So yes, our laws can work, but if Africa is going to really stay independent, we need to come together and build our own systems that will free us from this economic dependence.
So finally, how can there be a balance when it comes to subtly imposition of foreign cultures or norms as part of bilateral contracts with our leaders? In your view, what should be the approach if such clauses comes under their contracts?
I believe that African countries' position have been quite clear, and that is for some countries, which is quite good. Sometimes you don't have to support any side. I think that we should maintain a middle ground. We shouldn't criminalize it, allow people to do what they want to do in their private bedrooms, as it's against the culture of majority of the people. Majority of the people are Christians or Muslims, and they do not support this.
Maswe Boama is an international political analyst. And here's Sankule Janko with some sports updates.
Hello out there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Senegal began the total energies under the 17th Africa Cup of Nations, Algeria 2020 on a high following 1-0 victory over Congo. Defender Selim Fallou-Dio's second half volley earned them the points in their opener. Meanwhile, in the other part of the pitch, goalkeeper Selim Diouf reserved the points for the West African side after saving a first half penalty. Senegal finally won their first under the 17th AFCON opener after 3 attempts in the competition's history. Senegal moved to second in Group A, equal 3 points with leaders Algeria, who won 2-0 against Somalia on Saturday. Still in Algeria, Nigeria also kicked off the total energies on the 17th Africa Cup of Nations, Algeria 2023, with a 1-0 win against Zambia on Sunday. Favour Daniel's goal in the second half handed Nigeria all the 3 points. The Golden Eaglets could have doubled their lead after they were awarded a penalty late in the match, but Light Ike missed from the spot. The win helped Nigeria to move top of Group B with 3 points after one match. Elsewhere, Senegal international Boulaye Diaz's 84th minute strike for Salernitana spoiled the Patwo Napoleons after Napoli were held to a 1-1 draw on Sunday. The Nepalese side were a cause for history after they took the lead courtesy of Matthias Oliveira's 62nd minute header. The wild celebrations were cut short after the Senegalese equalized for Salernitana 6 minutes from time to force Napoli to wait for at least 5 days before they could be crowned champions of Serie A. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
Thank you, Sankole, for that sports update. We have come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to our listeners in the Gambia via Hot 104.3 FM and in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM Lofa County, and in Ghana Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi. Inyas Bilimu has been on the console. Many thanks to Mustafa Sek for our Facebook Live coverage. Do interact with us via social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Coming up next is a rebroadcast of our flagship health program. At the bottom of the hour, Well Body with Imo Edit. I am James Adjapong. Good afternoon.
News, talk, music, get it all 24 hours on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar.